I was with this older lady, and I said, yeah, everything's going really well. And I said, but, this is we have a general conference and we'll have a presidential election year and we'll get to do, said just what I just said,
Yeah.
Trump, Biden again. She goes, you know what I think? I said, no, ma'am, what do you think? I think Trump and Biden need to go be with Jesus. Did I screw that up?
And you can get Listen Up for only $14.99.
We're back.
There were probably people that thought, I hope they never come back. I mean, I don't know, maybe. God have mercy. I haven't heard that in a long
It's like
time.
a train wreck.
I haven't heard that in a long time.
Can't take
They
my eyes
die.
off of it.
So today we're back. It's, what is today? It's the end of January. So we have
Dear
been
Lord.
off
End of
a
January.
pretty good break since mid-December, maybe?
How can it be the end of January?
I don't know, but that's why.
Last week was just Christmas, right? And now,
Well, I think part of today is just we're going to catch some folks up on what have you been doing for the last month and a half
Yeah.
without this? I mean,
yeah. We're,
you can't find your way. You don't know what to do on Tuesday
know.
afternoons. You obviously have filled it with other things because when I said, "Hey, we're going to do Tuesday afternoon," so I'm busy, man. I got stuff
Tuesday.
scheduled.
What's Tuesday?
The last time we met, we were talking about leading up to Christmas. How was your Christmas? I know it seems like a year ago.
It was actually really good. I love Christmas around here. It's harder for you than it is for me. Just saying, I mean, a particular Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like there was. I just love this place around a lot of seasons, but Christmas is just wonderful. Being able just to wander around and hug on folks.
Yeah, it's
and
fun.
It's really a place where it's like there's a ton of crossroads that happen during Advent and Christmas around here. So it's a time of really reconnecting with folks in some ways. And particularly coming out of, I don't know if we're still coming out of the pandemic, but folks still coming back saying, oh, you still get that on occasion,
I always love when people say, "Oh, I know this is a crazy time for you. I know this. You're so busy," and I'm like, "Yeah, one day.
Yeah.
I'm really busy on one day. The other days, not so much. You could call me. We could go
do something.
Have a cup of coffee or something. I mean, Christmas Eve. Yeah, Christmas Eve is an all day. I mean, it is a marathon.
Yeah.
and we do the 11 o'clock service different, so I'm not doing that one anymore. Which
Why?
is.
You love the 11 o'clock, John. That has been your
I
passion.
love Jesus, and Jesus used to go to bed when the sun
At
went down.
9:30.
Yeah.
The infant was asleep by 4.
But no, it's Christmas Eve we had full house.
Yeah.
It was great to see people coming back, and it kind of felt like in a way over the past several years with COVID. I mean, COVID's been gone. Maybe is it gone? I don't know. Maybe there's a new one coming.
Yeah.
But no, it felt more like the pre-COVID years, I guess, in 2023. Maybe for the first time. I don't know.
It's great. I saw
yeah,
folks from out of town that were in town. I saw
yeah.
a couple from Lubbock that kind of were here for 100 years ago and came back through to visit family. And I was just like,
But then for me, the week after Christmas is always kind of like my unplug from life deal.
Yeah.
Don't really do much of anything. And Christmas was good, and then we get into the new year, and what's interesting is you get through the end of the year, and then boom. The timing was interesting because January, New Year's Day was like Monday, wasn't that right? New Year's Eve was Sunday, so
Yeah.
it's like sometimes you get like the week between Christmas and Easter is kind of like a down week, but then even after New Year's Eve or whatever that Sunday in between, you still have like 3 or 4 days of like nothing's going on. Yeah. Not this year because the first was on a Monday. It's like, okay, by Wednesday we gotta get going because
Right.
Because the first Sunday in January we're starting our stewardship of gifts, which is our funding deal. So it's like, oh, no rest for the weary. Time to get back on the horse. And speaking of, if you'd like to take a donation to Chapelwood for 2024, please visit chapelwood.org/give.
Till it hurts.
I upped my pledge.
Up yours.
think that will work. That's a great campaign slogan.
Yeah, it is. I wonder if that should be used sometime, John.
I think it has been used.
No,
before.
it was not.
Was
It was.
That was a Mercy Street campaign.
No, it was never officially.
It was an idea.
It was an idea that I actually presented to.
I thought you had T-shirts made up.
No, I had posters on foam board, and somebody on our team made up the whole campaign, and they told me this is a great idea, and so I alone presented this Up Yours to the entire stewardship folks at Chapwood, and midway through I thought, this is horrible. This will never work. What am I doing with Up Yours? And that was absolutely correct when a woman I really love and respect, who was about 80 years old, said, what does the phrase "up yours" mean? I thought, oh no, if you have to explain it. Yeah, then I realized this is not going to, and I just folded everything up and walked out in shame. But it's still a great idea.
It is.
I've upped my pledge, up yours.
Up
For
yours.
people that struggle with church and all that stuff.
Well, I
it's
think on the
kinda
front
like,
of the T-shirt it says, "I've upped my pledge." ... And on the back it just says, "Up yours."
Up yours.
So you'd have to get both sides of the T-shirt working
Yeah.
in order to understand.
which would work at Mercy Street, but to have non-Mercy Street kind of
Yeah, it probably wouldn't
You
work
know.
in our 11 o'clock traditional.
no. And to have everybody, say together, "Up your,"
Yeah.
don't
And the cards, the stewardship cards, and they're filling them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So you jump right back into
Yeah.
mission, ministry, life, which is good. I mean, it's. I will say, I tell people this. I feel so much better. Like,
Yeah.
it's for a number of years, just a dark cloud of anxiety over when does the next thing happen? When does the next shoe drop? When does the next person email me that they're not happy and that I'm,
Satan.
whatever. Yeah, I'm the devil.
Disappointment.
Or something. Yeah. So, join the rest of my family in being my mother and being disappointed in me. But I mean, it feels like we're in a different place. So I've
Yeah.
been meeting with a lot of
Yeah.
leaders of the church and just having a lot of coffees and conversations. And man, it really feels like we've crossed a threshold.
Yeah.
And there's still white water out there. United Methodist Church has a general conference coming up in April, and kind of see what happens with all of that. And then we've got a presidential election campaign. We get to do Trump Biden again.
Oh, that
Because that was so much fun last time.
part 2. Yeah.
So I mean, so there's that.
Yeah.
Although both those guys are pretty old, they may not make it. To
Yeah,
November.
there's always the hope that maybe 2 new candidates will rise.
I probably shouldn't say this on the podcast, and if you don't like it, just send the email to gwood, GWOOD at chapelwood.org. Not to me, but I was with this older lady, and I said, yeah, everything's going really well, and I said, but this is we have a general conference and we'll have a presidential election year, and we'll get to do. Said just what I just said, Trump Biden again. She goes, you know what I think? I said, no, ma'am, what do you think? I think Trump and Biden need to go be with Jesus. And I was like,
What a great bumper
That
sticker.
is the nicest way I've heard it framed. And you put them both together, which is
I think that's like, yeah.
I'm not, I don't even know what side you're on. I can't tell, but I can tell that she's like, I think they both need to go be with Jesus. I was like,
Oh, bless your heart.
bless their heart. So, yeah, I mean, that's coming, and that's always, in 30 years of ministry, anytime you have a presidential election year, you always get some, there's always some tension around that a little bit, but man, it's gotten worse in recent years.
And I don't mean to go there, but I'm going to go there. I mean,
You can. This is what we do. This is a new year, 2024. We've
Hey.
been set free, and we may go
We're gonna go
to
there.
places and say things and do things that we didn't do before. We're not going to be quite as
2024.
careful.
Okay, this is the theme of the podcast. Go there. Okay, so one of the things I've really loved about what you've been doing is like in the troubled waters that we know are coming and we're in, blah blah blah. Like, and I've been reading some Walter Brueggemann who says like these categories of
Walter.
I know, I love Walter. Walter's. These categories of like, and you've been like talking about this a ton. These categories of like political and all these other kind of categories, the conservative, progressive, liberal. Those aren't categories in the Bible. Categories in the Bible are categories like neighborliness. Categories in the Bible like solidarity and standing with those that
Community
are
belonging.
Those are the categories. And so the world, in a sense, the culture, the one that we're in, has so, I think, influenced and distorted our mindset that we think those are the categories we operate in. And always the biblical narrative says, no, actually, the categories are here, right? And I think that one of the things I've been learning of just being back at Chapelwood in a new way that's been deeply helpful to me is what you've been talking about for a while, which is the categories we operate in the New Testament are different, And so are we going to be formed? And I think this is what Paul means about renewing our mind and being formed in Christ, is that Christ sets the categories. And so the categories aren't in, out, or whatever the political ones are. They're really about, do we love?
For Jesus, Jesus, there's no condemnation. People want to condemn certain categories of people. Jesus never condemned, said he didn't come to condemn. Mm-hmm. Whenever people didn't mesh or align with Jesus, whenever they were out, it had nothing to do with Jesus. It had everything to do with them.
Yes.
They kept themselves out.
Yeah.
So the Pharisees, Jesus was fine. He ate with Pharisees. He went to the home of Pharisees.
Yeah.
He, like if you want in, you're in.
Yeah.
So is everybody else.
Not a category.
Yeah. And we've what I've been talking and using this image a lot is like we just kind of like in Game of Thrones, hold the door, hold door. We're just holding the line, refusing to give into or give way to the cultural, sociological, political, partisan pulls, no matter which side they come from or which way they come from, and to say, no, Jesus is going to be the center, and your politics has got to be subservient to that. The culture war's got to be subservient to that. And we're going to just follow the words, the teachings, the ministry, the actions, the movement of Jesus. That's going to be the litmus test. And we're going to start and go there with that. And that's going to help us to navigate through it. And we're going, and so
that's really good.
as the things are moving us this way and that way over the years, and it's just like we're going to hold this line. This is what we're going to be about. And what's interesting is that, some good Christian folks that's not enough for them, which it should be. It's sufficient. It's sufficiency.
That's not enough.
It's everything. No, they need that. They need Jesus in the center, but they also need you to affirm or confirm, like you said, whatever it is that they brought or that they have. That's just as important in that center space as Jesus is, because it is a Jesus thing. And then the problem with that is you got people on both sides of the issue that think they're on the Jesus side. That's the hard part for us to ever really get our minds wrapped around.
Yeah.
If it's if you're on my side, you're on the right side.
Of course.
If you're not on my side, you're on the wrong side.
I'll see you in hell. But I love you. John.
I love everybody.
But you're going to hell.
Yeah. I said that Sunday. I was like, whenever somebody goes, I love everybody. Whenever somebody says I love someone with that tone, you're like,
brace for impact.
I do not think that word love means what you think it means. It's like, no. That's we don't, that's the wrong tone.
Yeah.
But no, I think so I get a sense of that. I feel that. And it's liberating. It's enjoyable, now to.
Can I say this?
And it returns your division.
Yes.
And passion and energy.
Yeah.
Comes back.
So some people have said, like, well, if, what are the standards? Right? If everybody's loved, then, and if the culture doesn't set the standards and, tradition doesn't set the standards and these things don't set the standards, the way you're right, that I wonder if what we're attempting to do and discover, particularly in this community at Chapelwood, is the sense that this radical belonging is at the center of Jesus. And that when we come, it's the Spirit then that tells us and begins to, as we surrender our life and our will to the care of God, begins to put things like in relationships of deep belonging and givenness to each other. If there are there are things in my own life and in your life that the Spirit wants to say, hey, I want to create more interior freedom in your life, but you're going to have to let this go. Mm-hmm. We're not saying that pathway is not what discipleship means. We're saying it does. But we're saying that happens, that transformation happens in a deep context of givenness and belonging. And that outside of that is judgment, is all these things. And that's not the place of what Jesus says is, you belong to me. And in that place of givenness and protection and safety and tenderness, and then I'm gonna lead you into righteousness, into ways that you're living that you can be freed up from.
So I've been getting ready. I'm going to Tupelo, Mississippi this
really?
weekend. Yeah.
Huh. The garden spot.
Yeah, it's a birthplace of Elvis.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
But they invited me a long time ago to come for their Let's Shine weekend, and they are going through Paul Chilcote's book, Multiply in Love. And so as I've been preparing,
podcast session number.
Go on the YouTube channel. So speaking of, subscribe,
Mash that button.
like the podcast. But yeah, so when Paul was with us, one of the things he said, and I can't remember if it was actually in the book, but he did say it on the podcast, is that fundamentally what he discovered is that we have differing definitions or different ecclesiologies. And for people who don't know, ecclesiology is just your theology of the church. What do you believe the church is? And he said that the group that disaffiliated from the Methodist Church, the group that is been angry at this, that they believe that the church is a community and a society of saints. That basically it's a community of saints. And that the other side of that a different ecclesiology is that the church is a community of sinners. And that, and I noticed this as some of the groups that have left are, they're wrestling with redefining their mission statement. And of course, our mission statement is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. But all of a sudden now there's this conversation saying, no, our missions, this church that left, they're like, the mission statement should be to spread scriptural holiness across the world. Our mission is to spread scriptural holiness.
You know what that means?
So, well, first of all, I know they remove make disciples from the mission statement, and they remove Jesus. So I'm kind of wondering who
Sweet. That's the kind of church I was hoping existed when I was a kid.
Group. You can't make up the irony.
Yeah.
The group that left because we weren't biblical enough has removed Jesus from the mission statement.
Right.
So, of course, now there's all these rebuttals said, I think we should put Jesus back in. I'm like,
maybe.
that might be a good move on your part.
Hey, I'm not throwing stones here, folks, but...
And look, I think scriptural holiness is an important part of living out your faith. It's a part of Wesleyan identity and sanctification.
Heck yeah.
But to say that that's our goal is to spread scriptural holiness is, goes to that, back to that ecclesiology that the church is a community of saints. You got to have your stuff together. You got to be holy, you got to be righteous, you got to be that. Well, then I go and I look at the ministry of Jesus. And the community of saints would have been the church at the time with the Pharisees and that sort of what the institutional church was. The community of sinners was wherever Jesus was going.
Well, and I think putting that scriptural holiness is that I mean, there's a paradigm that you can read that through and say, oh, it means these things, these you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't do that. Or is it scriptural holiness that started movements like the Oxford Club, and AA, and the questions that scriptural holiness around Wesley's band and classes began, and you realize that there's a different way of reading that says, right, we're going to create context of deep belonging and struggle with each other, and that holiness really at the end of the day is not these cultural markers, but the way that we're given to each other in relationship, and that we can actually be vulnerable and walk each other's towards a deeper holiness wholeness.
You're also going towards churches that do that are going to go towards church. I remember, and I could name the denomination. It wouldn't be very nice of me.
Let's do it. Let's go there. Remember,
but I mean, like
2024?
Certain Church of Christ or certain denominations will, like when you go, right, you visit and then you say, oh, I'm ready to join the church. PCAs do this. Some other churches do stuff like this. You know, you have to basically come in and you go through
Oh yeah.
a tribunal.
Yeah.
It's
And
like your oral dissertation at your PhD. And they literally they ask you about your faith, and they ask you about your personal life, and they ask you about your belief. And they ask, because what they're trying to do is say, you can't be a member here, all right, until you pass whatever the threshold test is. And again, I'm looking at Jesus, the life of Jesus. I'm looking at the New Testament churches, and you know, you don't. That's something. Somewhere we made a move there. And then what happens whenever you have these conversations? People are like, "Well, so you're just saying no beliefs matter and nothing matters," and then it's like, "No, this is the way we work too in this world." Is like,
Yeah.
you either have to be all the way on this side or all the way on that
Yeah.
side, and then
Yeah.
no one understands
Right.
the
nuances.
The nuance.
Yeah.
No one
Yeah.
has nuance because no one has intellectual humility, right? There is no nuance. If you have no intellectual humility, there is no nuance in anything. It's like the way I am, and then anything else is evil and wrong.
That's right.
And so when you're processing that out and you're thinking about that, man, to be the kind of church that says, hey, you don't have your crap together? Guess what? We don't either. And the fact that I'm able, we talk about embodying grace, embody grace, you know, the way we fulfill our mission, making disciples is by embodying grace as we receive it. And to those who need it, we embody grace to those who need it as we receive it. And so we had to realize first, you know, we don't have all our stuff together. And there, but by the grace of God go I. The guy in the ditch could be me, right?
Yeah, it is us.
It still is us. But I'm saying that connection of just the way that you view. So
Yeah.
I think for churches that are still trying to, I think especially United Methodist churches going through this season, there's probably still some hiccups in the road ahead of us. But you have to fundamentally ask yourself, are we going to be, as we live in this post-Genesis 3 world, are we going to live and intersect that world through the lens of law or through the lens of grace?
Yeah.
And when you say that, it's almost like they're two different things. Really, they're not, because if you live through the lens of law, then you're only living in law. If you live through the lens of grace, you're living through law and grace. Because Jesus himself,
nice move.
I quote Jesus.
Nice move.
Jesus said that he didn't come to do away with the law. He came to fulfill the law.
Boom.
But how does he fulfill it? Sacrificial love, laying down his life, eating with sinners and tax collectors, eating in the
I
house
thought it was
Pharisees,
tithing and believing, and then just doing whatever else you wanted to do.
touching lepers, going through Samaria, being around unclean people, all these things.
Like moving outside of the categories.
So if you live in the Genesis 3 world through grace,
I would've killed him
you're
if he was
actually
around.
fulfilling the law, so you're doing law and grace. Whereas if you live it in law only, you're excluding grace and love.
Law works until you really need grace. And then when you need grace, dear Lord, you're hoping that the person that you've instituted to hold the law was actually deeply affected by grace.
It's just a hard, miserable life to live through the lens of law, because it's all good if you can keep your crap together. But man,
Actually, if you can keep your secrets intact.
well, it's true. Yeah,
That's really
'Cause
what I
nobody
found.
keeps it together. It is secrets. I mean, look at all this stuff in the news with the certain denomination, which I will not mention, Baptist. And all this sexual. Well, Catholics did. I mean, oh yeah. So, but really around the sexual abuse being covered up. And covering this stuff up
For years.
because we don't want anybody to know that we may be broken. And that's part of the honesty. And I would hope that the United Methodist Church is going to be a church and a denomination that says we're going to be vulnerable, we're going to be open, we're going to be a church that cares for the people, that God's children. We care for people, no matter where they are. We care for them, and we're gonna just live in this messy world through the lens of grace, the best we can. And it doesn't mean that we think everybody's living life the way they should, and they're not all doing it the right way. And some of them are probably disappointing God on a regular basis. But guess what? We're doing the same thing. And so it's trying to see through that lens, I guess, is an important part of what we're doing and what we're about. So that's kind of the...
One of the things that I was listening to some things that Father Gregory Boyle was doing 6 months or so ago, and he quoted Miser Eckhart, and who says that any thought of God that does not bring you comfort is a lie, which I thought was super interesting to me, and that those things about God and most of our, at least I think, kind of the upbringing I had was there's these things that I'm coming up against now in my adulthood with these kind of more kid or more earlier beliefs of God that I have to let go of. Because when I look at Hebrews, where Hebrews says, it's your kindness, O Lord, that leads me to change my life, to repentance, to moving into a new space, right? Because, and even Paul says, judgment was weak. It's a weak energy. The only energy that can sustain that kind of change long term is love and community in a knowing place, you know? And I think at Chapel, at least, we're going Texas Hold'em on that, right? Like you say, that's where Jesus is. We're all in. We're all in. And if it's politically falls in other places, that's not the categories we're operating in and transacting in, you know?
Yeah. Well, so we're going to get started. We're going to have, I do know, I think I put it on y'all's calendar. One of the things that I have lined up is our friend Bishop Monde Muyambo, who is one of the bishops from Africa, United Methodist bishops from Africa. They just had a big meeting over there with a lot of the delegates who are coming to General Conference, the African delegates. And I thought it would be good to have him for people who might still be interested in knowing what's going on in the United Methodist Church to hear an update. Interesting, someone sent me something that this group has some newsletter that part of the group that has left. And I thought it was kind of funny because this group in Africa met 170 something of the 260 delegates from the African continent. And they met and they passed a couple of resolutions. One was, we want to remain connected to United Methodist Church in unity. One, we want to support regionalism, which equality of the conferences. And they also passed a resolution on their support and belief of traditional marriage and understanding from their culture and their ethos. All that stuff got passed. Well, this group wrote this article, and it said, recently, a group of progressive, liberal, liberationist, centrist Africans. And I'm like, holy... So now I thought maybe
those are the same ones that they were using for their own agenda to split our church. So now we've gone to. So it's not enough. We were name calling each other here in America. Now we're going to start using the American label system for African delegates. Yeah. And I'm like, so you don't like the outcome of the meeting. Yeah. So like modern politicians, now you're just going to resort to calling them names. Yeah. What I love about what
it's like. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is horrible.
Well, welcome.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
Well, anybody who would want to be associated with someone who would do that, you could say, well, they did some stuff and I don't agree with them on that. But to label them as liberals, progressives, the Africans who voted a petition to uphold traditional understanding of marriage, we have lost our damn minds. Yeah. Some people have it is you can't make this stuff up.
Well, that's when you realize at the core of it mainly is what he said, at least when he was on the podcast, is that this is a Southern, mainly white issue.
Oh, it's very. If you look
so
at
please leave us alone. And why don't you guys figure that out regionally?
I mean, let's be honest. The United Methodist Church was already predominantly white and already predominantly old. The group that left was just a much older and much whiter version of,
But it's Southern. It's not all over the United States. Most of the churches that left.
And predominantly local and majority local pastors.
Yeah. And a lot from our conference because a former bishop, I think, acted in ways that were unbecoming his office and outside of his own integrity.
Wait, what? We don't do that here. We don't call out people here.
Sorry.
No. So one more last thing. I did get, had an opportunity the second week of January, a friend who has a house in Napa.
Well.
I know. And he's like,
how was dry January for you, John?
There's no dry January for me.
Damp.
It was damp.
Dear Lord.
It was, so
Napa.
So yeah, Stephanie and I went for a few days out of Napa. I love that place.
No,
Man, Jesus would have loved Napa.
He would have not had to turn water into wine. It's just already there.
Oh my gosh.
And the food. I'm not a partaker, but the food there is just
You know, you could say what you want about California, whether you agree with what they do or don't do, but I'm telling you what, they good. They know wine, they know food. Everything there is fresh. Now when we were walking down this little city where we didn't go to the French Laundry. I can't afford that. If anybody wants to send me a donation, I appreciate it.
What is French Laundry?
It's like the 3-star Michelin restaurant in Yountville in Napa Valley. It's like one of the Robert Keller. It's one of the famous restaurants of the world. So it's the one that the governor of California, after he said, everybody shut down, stay home, don't go out, he was caught.
Yountville. Hey,
I'm getting my drink on in the French Laundry.
I'll be there in 20.
But if I was the governor of California and I'd made everybody stay home and locked in, and the guy called me and said, "Hey, you want to come eat at French Laundry?" I'd be there too. So
good to be the king.
Can't blame him. Yeah, that's right. But anyway, so they was closed for the month of January because they do their freshening up renovations. It's not a big high time for people to go. But the restaurant's not very big. It's just a little house. It's like world renowned restaurant. And it's like just this little house on the corner. But across the street, they have this huge, like, acres of their garden.
Wow.
Where they grow everything that they cook.
Oh
my gosh. So you're walking by the garden and it's like, whatever's growing, this is what we're making. This is
How great is
See,
that?
that's what I'm saying. You would like that. I mean, that's
I would
because
love that.
I do too. It's just like everything is just super fresh. You go into the markets there, it's like every little mom and pop grocery store is like a Whole Foods, but without the branding.
Yeah.
You know, you walk in and they have cheese boards and salamis and meats, and they cut in all this kind of stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's good.
It's pretty amazing. It's beautiful.
So it was fun. We did that, and brought home some wine. It didn't last very long, but so yeah, I'm excited. We've got some topics we're going to be talking about. Some guests that we're going to have. We'd like to get some of our favorite guests to come back and be with us and just talk about kind of, I think being in a better place. We will do some stuff on United Methodist Church as general conferences coming. And I think it's helpful for people who may listen to this who are in the United Methodist Church to kind of get a sense if we're able to connect them to some information or some person that they wouldn't be able to connect to or hear from. I think it's helpful. But we're going to talk about more than just that.
Yeah. Can't wait.
All right. Well, hey, listen, make sure as we get started back, this is a great time to, whether you watch on YouTube, which we are on YouTube, you can go watch the podcast. You didn't know that. Maybe I didn't know. Or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Make sure you subscribe. If you subscribe, then when a new one comes out, it shows up on your feed. If you like it and leave a nice comment, that kind of does something with the magic algorithm that pushes us up ratings-wise. So... and lets other people discover. And also share it. Send it to a friend. If there's an episode or some content or something you want to share with somebody, send it along to them. That's always nice as well. So, I'm John Stevens.
I'm Matt Russell.
And this is Pod Have Mercy.